Today someone has actually asked me to help them start a streetwear label. Item number one is taking a pattern off a hoodie with some of the things slightly changed. The length they don't like, the sleeve they don't like. So I thought I'd put it on video and we'd go through it so that you know how to do it as well. Go through a couple of things that I've got here that we need. You don't have to have these things, but they're always handy. A set square, a small ruler, a tracing wheel. This was an old screwdriver. It's called a scourer. You take the point off the screwdriver. You can buy these already made, but Dad made this for me probably 40 years ago. And this is going to come in handy later. Pattern knickers. I just use a normal pair of scissors. I know people like pattern making scissors with the long handles. I don't like them. I actually feel a little bit out of control with them. So for these work better for me. An eraser, some kind of Texta to write on your pattern, a hole punch, grey lead pencils, which are hopefully sharp, although I can't find my sharpener. So I'm going to be using my pacer. A tape measure. This tape measure, I've taken the end off it because I like to be very precise with my 0.25, my 0.75 and my 1 centimetre. Any tape measure that is your favourite will do. This has been rolled up in my pattern making box, so it's a bit crinkety. I like using cardboard. You can use pattern making paper. You can use old pieces of paper. Some people like to use sheets. Okay, let's go. Chosen thing is cardboard because I've been using cardboard for the whole of my life, but actually it would be far easier if I did it by paper. And some people like to turn the garment inside out. Personally, I don't. I think that the fold of the garment is actually, it's not going to be precise enough for my liking, but each their own. If you want to do that, I just make sure that the garment is quite flat. And then what we want to do is actually grab some pins, and I like to mark out halfway point of everything. So on this one here, it's 25. So we're going to go for 12 and a half. It's actually pretty much exactly here in the middle of the crossover of those 2 points of the hoodie. So we'll put one there and we'll come over here, and this is 68, just 34 is your halfway mark. You could even put one in here, which is, that's 28. So we're going to go for 14. And we'll put one halfway in here. So that is 61. We're going for 30.5. Okay. So grab your tracing wheel and also grab your set square and your scourer. So these are the things we need: tracing wheel, set square, set scourer. And firstly, I just go down here. It actually got to make sure that it doesn't ruin the garment, but it doesn't. Do that. And then we start tracing out around the garment. So this front neck drop is actually the depth is 7.5. So we're going to go down and make sure when we bring this garment off that we've got a depth of 7.5. So I mark here and I mark down the shoulder. I just do 2 points and I'm just marking out roughly where everything is before I start. It's so much easier with a tracing wheel. So you just go inside the seam and all of those tracing wheel marks come out on here. So you can see it. but we are going to be changing a lot of this. So just make sure that the tracing wheel marks come out on here. Yes. And we'll make sure it's at the bottom. Yes. And that's basically all we have to do at this point, because we'll do all of the pocket by measurement and we'll take it from there. It's also handy if you have measured the garment beforehand and you know what you're wanting, because you should try your garment on and make sure that if you want anything changed, in this case, this garment needs to be 6 centimetres shorter in the body length. The rib bands, because it's so old, are all misshapen, so we have to start again on those. And the sleeve is also too long, and the sleeve bands are also too big because they've been stretched out of shape over the years. Now, just draw your centre line. And this is where the scourer comes in handy, because we then go down here so that we can fold the cardboard in half easily. Of course, you don't have to do this if you're working with paper. Now, what I want to do is make sure that it's squared off here. But because we know that this is going to be 6 centimetres shorter, we need to bring it up by 5, because you want to leave 1 centimetre on for your seam allowance. So bring that up the length by 5 centimetres. And then you also know that that's already got its seam allowance on. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Over here, if we come in and do a little set square measurement at the neck point, so that's all set off there. There's your shoulder point. Here on the garment, it was 7.5 centimetres down. I kind of think you could do 7.5 and have it so that the 7.5, it actually, when you take the seam allowance off, it'll come down to about 8.25, because 7.5 is not that deep. And then at the back neck, you want to take, literally, it's just 1 centimetre. And then when you take the seam, when you stitch it, you're going to be dropping that down by 7.5 automatically. Come in here. And because you've got a 7.5 centimetre seam allowance all the way around the neck, at that point there should be 7.5 away from the shoulder seam. And then that is basically your back neck. And then your front neck will come around, scooping up nicely to there. Okay, so we've got a beautiful neck shape there. Everything's good. Here we want to add 1 centimetre. Now I'll just tell you one thing about shoulders. I actually don't think there's too many pattern makers that know about shoulders, but one thing about shoulders, the shoulder seam should always be forward, or else it's going to fall to the back every time. Now for a hoodie, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, and I'm going to just leave it the way this is, but really you should be bringing that shoulder seam forward by 1.5 to 2 centimetres. So this time I won't do it, but if I'm doing a tailored shirt or anything like that, it actually has to be fixed. Another thing I don't like is that people don't set square off their shoulders here. So you end up with seagull going like this, and it does not look good, and it also doesn't work when you're stitching it up. So make sure that this is set squared off, and you've added 1 centimetre here. and then you bring it down, curve it around. Now, in this case, we want to take off a little bit, about 3 centimetres. So in actual fact, we want to take 2 centimetres off and leave 1 centimetre as the seam allowance. So we make sure that this, again, does not have any dropping points or points when you've actually stitched it up. So it has to have a nice bit there. Down here, we actually want to make sure again, we're taking this in by 2 centimetres. And I would actually take it in a little bit more for the band and bring it up. And there, my friends, is your body. All we have to do now is add the pocket. So we're going to do the pocket by measurement. I just want to make sure that we're actually okay as far as length goes. Double check that length is going to be 65.5. 72. I think you can add a little bit more on to make sure it's the right length. So 72, 66. It's looking a little bit dumpy proportionally, even though the customer wants it to be 6 centimetres. I think it's actually going to be a little bit dumpy, and that might give it an overall better look. Shaping this by the eye. That's good. Now we're looking at a finished measurement without the band on it of 67, roughly, which I think is pretty good. The drop shoulder's looking nice. Shape-wise, this is all good. We'll take off a bit of the mess. So there's not too many lines, like a messy pattern. And that's looking great. Okay. Now, let's have a look at the pocket. Pocket-wise, get a few measurements down. Got 32 centimetres, so we're on the half, obviously. That 32 is here. We're going to add another one for our seam allowance. Yep. The height of the pocket is 22. Not forgetting that we've got 1 centimetre already off here, so that's 23, and we shall finish it here. So 23, and we're going to put 23 up here as well, so that we can get a nice straight line. That's 14. Over to here. That height is 8.5. So we want to go up by 8.5, and the pocket at the widest position is actually going to be 20. So we want to come out to here. So if you like maths, this is perfect for you guys that are maths people. Bring that up by 1 centimetre to allow for the fact that there's seam allowance on the hem. So this is the wider spot here, which is 20. So the pocket's actually going to look like this. This here is going to be 14. That's out to here. Now I just want to measure the opening and make sure that we're nearly there. Oh, perfect, look at that. And then curve that, well, actually I think that pocket, because that edge has to be on the fold. So it was obviously originally straight. We'll leave it straight. Now we can start cutting this pattern out. Pick up the mess. Okay, get everything out of the way. And we can just so easily, because we've scoured it, fold it over. It's super easy. And off we go with the cutting. Look at that beauty. Make sure that this doesn't even have the slightest dip. Oh, because I can't stand those things. Right. Cut this out, the front neck, and then you'd have the back and front neck in the one pattern, which I'm actually going to do. And then when you cut it out, there you go, back and front neck. Trace that out for the front, trace that out for the back. Normally the back and front armhole, the back's got a little bit more in it than the front's scooped in, but this is a dropped armhole, so there's actually no reason to do that. It's like a dropped armhole t-shirt. It's basic pattern making. When we do something a little bit more tailored, we're always going to scoop in the front a little bit more than the back. This is nowhere near your armhole, so we don't need to do that. This is perfect. Having made a million hoods in my life, I know the exact measurements for hoods, and this is pretty good. It's a little bit tall, but it's also streetwear, so it's kind of going to have that sloppiness in it. So we might not add any seam allowance to this top section. And we don't ever want to see a point at the back. A lot of people make that mistake, that the back of the hood is actually pointy, which is not great. And then, because this is actually quite thick to go through, what we're going to do is just sketch it on there, coming down to here, and we're going to freehand the hood and make sure that it fits. So to make sure it fits, this is where your scourer comes in handy again. We start at the centre back and we follow it around where the seam allowance is. So that is actually looking perfect. There's going to be the neck point, the shoulder point there. Then you can flip it over and make sure, take the shoulder seam off so that it's in this right spot. And then on the seam allowance, which is 0.75 around the neck, we just keep pivoting the pattern around till it gets to the front. And then you've got your crossover of the hood. So you've got the crossover at the front. So this is going to be your seam allowance back here because we're not going to be doing it on the fold like that. And then this part here, let's get our little, my favourite little toy, which is this. This is your crossover piece. So let's make it 2.5 with 1 centimetre seam allowance. So the hoodie is the hood section at the front will cross over by 2.5. The other thing we could do if you felt like it is just see how wide this neck is, and you could widen the neck out slightly being a hoodie, because the actual neck circumference of any of these hoodies need to be 60 centimetres. So this has got stretch in it. The fabric's going to have stretch in it. But normally, where's my tape measure gone? Normally, this around here, taking the shoulder seam off and going along 0.75 seam allowance, the actual head of this is 54. I would actually bring that out a little bit because some of these hoodies got quite wide necks. So let's actually change that, and I will bring that out so that it's wider and scoops down like that. Just something like that. Let's see, let's double check the measurement there. $56, and that's pretty good. I don't mind that. Go out like the tiniest bit, and that's going to be pretty close to 60. And considering the that this has got stretch in it, I'll bring that down a tad. That's going to be easy to get over the head. The 60 minimum stretch is the minimum. So again, cut that out. That is beautiful. Look at that. Right, so let's just double check it again. That comes around. This time the mark has moved along a bit, so obviously because we've widened the neck. it's back here now. Then we go into getting the scourer. And coming in 0.75. That's there. That's your crossover piece. And now what we want is for it to cross over to here. Add 2. Add 1 centimetre for your seam allowance. That's that, and that's where it's going to cross over to. And make sure that obviously we want this nice and straight along here. Coming up to here. Beautiful. That is perfect. Now, we also want, we're not going to add any seam allowance along the top here as we've already discussed. So make sure again that that's nice and set out straight. Beautiful curve. We've got plenty of room in here because roughly that's normally 27 finished, and that's exactly what it's looking like it's going to be after you've stitched it. And then we just want to add some in here. Look at that. Beautiful. Make sure that that curve's nice. We do not want any pixies standing up in the air when the hoodie is finished. No pixies, please. Right. While we're at this point, I just want to actually put on a grain line. So this is the way that it's going to be cut. And there's a couple of things we need. The style, if you've got a style number, what it is. In this case, it's a hoodie. The size, this is an M men's. And the pattern piece. Hood, cut, 1 pair. So what we could do is actually cut 2 pairs if you wanted to, and you could cut 1 pair in self, and you could cut 1 pair in lining, but that gets more to when you find the fabric. You'll be able to work out whether you want it with lining or self or single. There's a lot of development. This is going to be Proto 1 if you want to do different styles. In this case, they want to do it in a couple of different colours. So firstly, you've got to test this and make sure that it's okay, that it fits together. So you're going to make one, and then you'll go into production. And obviously, every time you do it in a different kind of fabric, you have to test it because each fabric performs differently as well. Now, this is where you want this. 1 centimetre, shoulder seam, crossover, centre front, front seam. Beautiful. So while we've got this here, we're also going to cut style, hoodie, men's M, cut one front, cut one back. And obviously this is on the fold. Okay, now let's have a look at the cuff, which is quite large. This is a men's, but we do need to take some off because it's too floppy and it doesn't hold the sleeve properly. So what we want, this is 26. I reckon you could definitely bring it down to 22 and it's still going to be good. And it's 15 centimetres wide. Let's go. These pieces are quite easy. Just going to use the edge of the cardboard. So what it is going to be 22, and it's going to be, I don't like wasting any cardboard, by the way. Every bit of cardboard is kept and used for tiny little pieces of any other pattern. I like to use every piece of cardboard I can get. So 22. Waste not, want not, and less landfill, I say. There's a cuff. Again, style, hoodie, men's M, cuff, cut one pair. Now, this could be rib, it could be self fabric, because sometimes if you're at home and you can't find anything that is dyed to match, you can, and it's a stretchy fabric, you can actually just use the self fabric. You don't have to use rib just because a lot of garments are. They're bulk made garments and they can dye their rib to suit themselves. If everybody actually used self fabric, then you wouldn't have to dye things 20 times. Although sometimes they put them in the same vat. Okay, now for the sleeve. What I also want to double check here is, have a look. what I need to do is also make the band, and I'm going to try and fit everything into one piece of paper. So the band, which is clearly too big, let's have a look at the body of this. So you could make it, we want to take a bit off the band so it stretches on, but you don't want it gathered. So you could make it 27.5. And again, this is going to be 15 wide altogether. So 27.5. And then that comes down really to be 26. Give yourself a little bit of space, because sometimes when you do these things, you run out of fabric, run out of paper. Let's do this. Now this is also too short, too long in the sleeve, and a little bit wide down here. So once it bored in a bit there, here we are, look at that, looking great. Beautiful. Fold that over. Look at that. Get this again. This is one of my favorite things, this thing. And again, what we want, we take the shoulder seam off, obviously. Come around the sleeve. And that is actually pretty perfect, I have to say, if I don't say so myself. And that's basically where it's going to finish, which is at the 1 centimetre mark of that seam, of that armhole. So what have we got for the sleeve length? Take that off, don't need that. That's absolutely perfect. I want to have a little bit of a curve there. And then up here, we make sure that it is straight again. No seagulls on patterns, please. Beautiful. Now, before we do that, just measure this sleeve. Okay, that is 53. What have we got here? That is 53, but we want it shorter. So we've got 1 centimetre already off there for the seam allowance. So when we come down here, we've got 53. We've got 1 centimetre off there. Let's make it there, which is 52. 1 centimetre off there, that's only 2 centimetres. We probably want to make it about, I would say 50. Don't forget that it's already a drop shoulder. So it's already not right. Now, then that is 28, but that is too big. It's too floppy, too floppy, too floppy. Let's get our cuff out again. Now, one thing we do have to do with our cuff is mark off the fold line. You don't really have to because you know when you're going to fold it, but it is proper pattern making, which we do love to do sometimes. Pop a little in there so when you cut it out. So the halfway mark of this is basically what it's going to look like, which is back here, but we do want to make it, obviously it needs to pull in a bit, and just from knowledge, we want ease. We don't want to stretch, like gather the end of the sleeve in, but we do want ease in it. So that's actually where it was, and we've just taken 1.5 off, just enough. And this is only because the Lord and Master that wants this pattern actually requires the sleeve to be a little bit shorter and a little bit narrower. Now, I'm not liking the angle on that too much. What we might do is just bring it in slightly and kind of curve it in and down. I think that's going to be okay. What I don't like is also this angle here. It's kind of like a halfway mark. That's better. And then when you get to here, actually slope that down slightly so that we don't have any seagulls. We don't have any seagulls. Look at that. Beautiful. That is much better. Right. Next we need to cut the sleeve out. Let's have a little look, shall we? Right. That is that. Kind of think that's actually gathering it in a little bit more. I might actually take a little bit more off that because it might gather that in slightly. And I don't want it too puckered. That's better. Yep. That's how much you're going to gather it in, which is not that much. Style hoodie, sleeve, cut one pair, size M, off we go. That is good, that is good. We can just get this and we can actually double check that sleeve fits, taking 1 centimetre off here for the shoulder. Oh my God, it is perfect. That's good. That's good. Hoodie's good. Now we need to do the pocket. Now, let's squeeze it in here. And it is super easy to take the pocket off because all we're doing is tracing. So we're going to do that. We'll scour it so we can fold it. And then we get this little scourer again and just put a punch in each of the spots. We're going to draw from that dot to that dot to that dot to that dot. Super, super easy. And we also need to add 1 centimetre to everything as we go for seam allowance. One, if you love maths, pattern making is the thing for you. Look at that. So perfect. I love it. Right, what we also need to do, actually, I'm going to go for 2.5 here, or at least 2 on the opening. I don't want to measly. Actually, I might even go another 0.75 because then I can fold the edge over and I can really neaten that edge and make it look designer. Where if I don't have the inside of my garment that I've made nice and neat, if it looks scrappy, I will never wear it because I don't care if someone else sees it. The fact is that you basically need to feel good in what you're wearing, and if you don't, a lot of that's to do with how scrappy the finish is. So that's basically where it is. And what we're going to do here is scour this edge again, like so. Fold that over, like so. And then we can cut this and cut this. And look at that. That's fantastic because now it's perfect when you fold it over. And it is just what you want. Perfection, that's what you want. So here we go again. And there it is, my friends. The pocket. Now what you do want to do though is use this little hurdy-gurdy, put a hole punch here and put a hole punch here so you know exactly where you're putting the pocket. Cut 1. You could also cut 2 if you felt like it, and then bag the whole thing out and sew it on, and that would actually, you know, you can then use it however you want, like with lining on the inside. You've got your front, you've got your back. You've only got one more pattern piece to do. How exciting and how quick. Right. Now, this one, what we might do, this is going to be beautiful. We already know how wide it is. It's 15 centimetres, same as the cuff. Now, does anybody know why the grain line is this way and not down the piece on this particular piece? Yes, that's correct. Whoever answered that. Because the rib goes that way and the stretch goes that way, and that's what you need. If you did it the other way, there would be zero stretch and it wouldn't be a rib band, would it? Or a self-knit band. Because we haven't got miles and miles of cardboard, it's obviously going to be cut one pair. So then we've got that. That is beautiful. It's looking amazing. And we just want to take it down a bit. So I'd say you want ease, you don't want, I'd say we're going to take it down to about there. Just a tiny bit of ease. Of course, it depends on the quality of the rib you're using, or if you're doing self fabric, or whatever you're doing, because each of those things are going to be performing differently. So it is a bit of a trial and error situation. Right, kids, look at that. That does not go onto that, but it is the same halfway mark. So we're just using it as a cheat guide. And there we have a beautiful pattern. See you again soon. Bye.